Okay, so let's get started. Welcome to today's webinar with the topic of AI recommendations within HR and within SuccessFactors. First, I want to quickly just outline some housekeeping rules. During the presentation of my colleague Kevin and me, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. And afterwards, we will also have a Q&A in which you can ask questions directly by raising your hands, and then we will unmute you, or the moderator will unmute you, and you will then be able to directly ask the question. Before we dive right into the topic of HR and how AI-based recommendations are used there, I quickly want to give a short outline on AI recommendations in general. And as you see on my title slide here, I want to talk about the SAP AI Business Service recommendation service. And so building effective recommendations is in general a problem in many use cases, but I think the most known one is the e-commerce area, where you want to show your customers recommendations for things to buy that when they look at a certain item, or when they have viewed a certain amount of items or certain category of items. But to create those recommendations is actually not an easy effort, because there are very often rule-based methods are used, but due to often changing base catalog, like item catalog, product catalog, this is a lot of manual work and very time. It's a lot of time that you need to update the recommendations. Therefore, you can also not create the best personalization. So with rule-based approaches, very often it is not as personalized as customers would want. And actually, studies show that a customer that buys something on an e-commerce website is most likely to become or 40% of customers that have been shown personalized recommendations are becoming repetitive buyers on an e-commerce website. And so what is now the solution for that? What we have done is we have built a recommendation service that can easily create recommendations for the website. And there are basically three different types of recommendations that can be done. First of all, personalized recommendations based on the user's history, browsing history. Second, search and category recommendations, where filtered products are filtered and ranked based on the user profile, on his click history, but on his browsing history, but also in a certain category. And also targeted promotions that basically curate recommendations with a brand or product boosting. And as I said, for that we have the recommendation service. I directly want to add that this service is not generally available for customers yet to build their own recommendation scenarios. But if one of you now got interested in this service, please reach out to me, and we can talk about how we can get in contact and how you can work with us to test the service, to try it out, and how you might be able to get that service. However, the service is already available in different of our SAP solutions, and that is why we're also here today. But let us go one step back one more time. So how does the service actually work? So the service creates recommendations based on historical user behavior and item metadata. And so the item metadata could be, for example, a catalog, a product catalog, or catalog of courses, of classes, of whatever kind of catalog you might have, and the user profile. And then there is a model trained, an AI model trained, and this model can then serve with personalized recommendations. And as I already touched, The recommendation service can be applied across a diverse range of LoBs and business domains. So the first one would be Omnichannel Retail, the topic or the example that we have just seen on websites, to drive conversion with personalized recommendations to make sure that your buyers either buy more, to have an upsell or a cross-sell, or that they become repetitive buyers. Same for procurement in an internal catalog for procuring items in an organization. Employees might they might think of the Amazon shopping experience, right? And when they buy, let's say, a company phone, they want the internal procurement catalog to also show them directly the respective charger or the headphones that go with this mobile phone. A third possible use case is in human resources to drive employee success with learning and career path recommendations. And I don't want to say too much about that yet, because that is exactly the topic we're here for today, and where my colleague Kevin will, right after I finish now, give us a demo and a bit more detailed explanation. Last point I want to mention before I hand over to Kevin is also to integrate the service with a chatbot is possible, to enable the chatbot to give more intelligent responses with recommendations. And that's already everything I want to say. I don't want to take up too much of time and bore you with slides when Kevin has an interesting and exciting demo directly ready for us. So I will stop sharing my screen and hand over to Kevin.
Thanks, Jana. Right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, firstly, thanks, Jana, and welcome. So, like Jana mentioned, I'll be going through how we use the recommendations in SuccessFactors, and we've got 2 use cases that we actually build up using the recommendation engine for learning as well as career pathing. So, firstly, I'll cover what it is, and then I'll go through an actual demo of the actual system itself. So we'll firstly start with personalized learning recommendations. So what's the premise of this? So companies really need to stay competitive by continually developing their employees. Unfortunately, 80% of employees really haven't taken any training to develop themselves in the last 5 years. The problem, in essence, is most learning systems, employees are swamped with content, and it's difficult for them to find content for themselves. So to tackle this, we built a recommendation engine on top of our learning product, using machine learning to surface the most relevant content to employees. So the results really are a couple of things. So firstly is to really increase talent development to build a better workforce, to connect employees with personalized recommendations for training, enabling our customers to make better use of the vast amount of content they have, and really help organizations to create a culture of learning. So how does this work? So in essence, what we use underlying is actually the SAP recommendation service that Jana was talking about before. So basically what happens if you see the slide, we go through a training process where it extracts the information from our learning system. So that would be user as well as item information. So user would be your user profile. It would be your user history. And the item would be the learning item catalog. So the catalog of learning that is available, but also obviously the history based off that. It gets pulled into the SAP recommendation service engine. We run through the machine learning algorithms, and it goes through the training. And then it actually then surfaces and actually goes through the inferencing process to actually recommend the results. So at the bottom, you'll see that it'll calculate after the training, it creates a model, and then the inferencing process will then create the actual recommendation results to actually show to the user the actual recommendations within the UI. Okay. So let me show you a demo of the system. Right, so you should see a screen with a learning system there.
We do.
You'll see, sorry, okay.
We do see the learning system. I just
Okay,
wanted to
thank
confirm.
you. Perfect, thank you, Jana. So you'll see this is our learning system. You see I'm logged on as myself. You'll see that there's a actual recommendation tile on the bottom. So it's blended with the existing recommendations that we have. So the first two items is the existing recommendation, manual recommendations. So the first one is a manual recommendations from our learning team itself. And then the second recommendations is a recommendation from a peer recommending a particular course. So you might see a particular course that might be of interest to yourself, and then you might recommend that to other colleagues that you have. But also included is actual machine learning based recommendations, and we've got two types. One which is called popular peers. So in essence, this is using the actual recommendation engine that Jana mentioned. It uses your learning history and the learning history of others to surface what you might be of interest to you to actually learn. So in this case, it's actually show me a invoice management recommendation. The second type of recommendation is topic-based recommendation. When you first log on, the system will ask you to it will actually default some topics that might be of interest to you. You can subscribe to additional topics, and you see it here. And then what it will do will run natural language processing to actually surface recommendations for that particular topic. In this case, I've subscribed to a negotiation topic, and it's actually surfaced that recommendation. From here, you can interact with it exactly the same way you would for a normal learning item. You can assign it and actually complete that course. You can recommend it to others, or you can remove it if you're not interested in that particular learning item. Also, you can interact with it, so you can actually look at the actual cost, a brief cost description there, or you can actually go into the actual learning item and actually drill into the actual recommendations itself. That's learning recommendation. Right, so the next topic is career pathing and career explorer. So firstly, before we introduce the topic of career explorer, within HR, basically, if you think about it, a lot of the actual transactions that you do is really finding similar employees within the suite. And it's a concept that we're trying to do called people connection to enable and automate a lot of the processes that we have in a HR system. So we'll be talking about career pathing, but you can imagine this concept in other areas. So for example, succession. So if you think about succession, and for example, if you're trying to look for a successor to myself, ideally what you want to do is actually look for someone, ask the system to look for someone very similar to myself and actually recommend it. At the moment, what happens is it's really based off the knowledge of the individual HR person to actually find that information. Ideally, what you'd want to do is allow the system to actually automatically find it itself. So the first use case for people connection is Career Explorer. So what you're trying to do here is based off your career path and your job history and the job history of others, recommend possible career options for that particular individuals. Historically, what happens is a lot of the times when you're looking at career pathing, it's very manual. So for example, I'm in product management. Typically, there's a very fixed career path. So I would start off as a junior product manager, going to a product manager, senior product manager, and so on. Whereas in practical real life, people move around in the actual organization. And what this is trying to do is actually surface that information, surface the actual path of the individuals within the system, and suggest based off what similar people have done in the past. This is particularly useful in particular when you're looking at roles outside of your normal hierarchy, because you'll surface roles that you might not necessarily know about, especially items that might be that you may not necessarily have anticipated. And it really helps individuals plan out their career growth and have more motivation to stay within the company and drive employee retention. Right, so let me show you a demo of that as well. Let me just move the screen. All right, so you would see I'm logged in as Anya, and this is our Career Explorer. So this is within our SuccessFactors system itself, under a tab called Career Explorer. So here I'm Anya, I am an administrative support, and I'm looking to see what sort of career paths are available to myself. So let's expand and see what is available. It's recommended 3 roles based off what similar people have done within the system itself. So here, based off the 3 roles, it's identified 3 areas which I could sort of explore through: planning, management planning roles, as well as engineering role itself. You'll notice that it actually also includes to give you an idea of how many people have done it as well. So it's got the number of employees there as well. And it's a tree sort of diagram where you can sort of expand. So in this case, I'll expand management and planning. And then you'll see it continues on to sort of show the career path of what people have done. From there, if you're interested in a particular role, in this case, I'm here, so we'll look at the professional role. You can actually look at the role that's available here. You can interact with that role, so you can remove the role if you're not interested in, but you can also add it as a target role. So once I've added it as a target role, you can actually include it in your actual career planning process. So if you look at your career worksheet, I've identified professional as a role that I would like to sort of develop myself into. And then you can look and develop yourself into that particular role. So in this case, it's brought in all the particular characteristics of that role, and I can start developing myself into that role. So that's an actual demo of the Career Explorer system. So that's the end of my demo. So I guess Jana, we can open it up for questions, or if there's any comments or questions that the audience might have.
Sure, we can open it up for questions. I think one question was already in the Q&A, and I answered it already, but maybe not everyone has seen that. There was a question if there's any additional cost to these AI services for learning and career matching, or are these embedded just need activation in provisioning? And if I'm not mistaken, then Kevin Wright, learning recommendation and career recommendation within SuccessFactors is at no additional costs.
That's correct. That is correct, yes. There's a question that's come up.
Yeah, there's another question for you about Career Explorer. If it is still in early adoption, I have seen it for a while, I thought.
That's correct. So we're currently in early adopter right now. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to join the early adopter program. So what early adopter program means is we're just we're not allowing everyone. Select customers can actually enable it right now, so we can get the feedback on the actual functionality itself. You can definitely use it in production or your preview systems, but it's just limited to the number of customers that can access it. So if you're interested, definitely reach out to myself. My name is Kevin, and we can definitely arrange to get you access to it.
If there are no further questions, I think we can close. Oh, there is one more. Sorry. What about the OPP Marketplace AI ML matching? So for the commerce, if you mean the commerce scenario that I have shown on my slides in the beginning, it is actually also available through our Commerce Cloud through the module of context-driven services. And there they have also used the recommendation service, and they have also added it at no cost. Then I see one in the chat here. Where will be the slide and recording for the session? Actually, that is a good question. I think that the recording will be available on YouTube, but I honestly am not sure. I'm sorry about that. So then again, if there are no further questions, I guess we can close the session 5 minutes early and give you back 5 minutes of your time. We don't want to keep you. And I just got answer from my colleague that I quickly asked in parallel where will be the recording. So as I said, it will be available on YouTube and most probably from next week. And with that, I think we can close the call. Thanks everyone for attending, and please reach out to us if you are interested in either the SuccessFactors use cases or in any other use cases for the recommendation service. Thanks everyone.
Well,